I want to have it baptized in a public because I want to say I don't afraid anymore. I'm free, I'm Christian. I want everybody know about that.
This week on Christian World News, an Iranian Christian faces death if she's sent back to her country. So why is the Swedish government trying to deport her while protecting former ISIS militants?
Plus, as North Korea and the U.S. prepare for a summit, Christians are still suffering in Korea. We'll meet some who escaped to tell their tale.
And the ISIS atrocity that shocked the world in 2015. 21 Christians marched onto a beach and were executed on camera. Today, this Egyptian community is honoring their beloved martyrs. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, last year we brought you the story of Ideen Stranson, a Christian from Iran living in Sweden. The Swedish government has decided to deport her back to her home country.
Many of you have asked for an update on her situation. My colleague Dale Hurd visited her in Stockholm as she waits for either deportation or deliverance.
She is a woman without a country. Ideen Stranson is officially a stateless person. No passport, no citizenship, unable to get a job, and living every day with the knowledge she could be deported to her native Iran, where, as a Christian, she could face grave danger. A worldwide outcry over her situation has apparently not changed anything.
The world was outraged when the Swedish government decided to send a Christian and ex-Muslim back to Iran, where she could be imprisoned, raped, and even killed. But it didn't seem to bother the Swedish government at all.
After CBN News first brought the former Iranian actress's story to the world stage, the government of Hungary offered her asylum, and many people from around the world wrote the Swedish government asking it to reconsider.
It was really like a miracle for me when so many people in America, they called the Sweden embassy. Many people, they send a comment to me and they say, you are welcome to our country.
But Sweden's migration board told CBN News none of that matters. Ideen's case has been turned over to the Swedish border police for deportation. Now she waits in a kind of legal limbo.
Ideen's situation is not at all unusual in Sweden. There are a fair amount of people who get stuck in between.
Swedish attorney Gabriel Donner knows Sweden's asylum process as well as anyone. He represented 160 Christian asylum seekers last year alone.
In your experience, should she expect to eventually be deported?
She is running that risk, quite obviously.
Ideen Stranson came to Sweden from Iran in 2014 on a work visa and adopted a Swedish last name. She left Islam and became a Christian in Iran after seeing a video of Muslims stoning a woman to death. And then she had a dream about Jesus. When she arrived in Sweden, she requested a public baptism.
I want to have it baptized in a public because I want to say I don't afraid anymore. I'm free, I'm Christian. I want everybody know about that.
Which means the Islamic government of Iran knows. And because she starred in films and a TV series in Iran, it makes her an even bigger target if she is sent back. It's not clear if or when that might happen.
Well, when it comes to the border police, it all depends on whose table it lands on. Sweden's backlog is growing and growing and growing. Right now, it's around about 2 years and growing. This is contrary to European Union law, but nobody cares.
Donner says Ideen would first be sent to prison while authorities made arrangements to fly her to Iran.
This is real prison conditions. They're not allowed to speak in telephones. They're not allowed to be on a computer. They're not allowed to get in touch with anybody. They wear prison clothes. If they're transferred anywhere, they're transferred in chains.
Swedish authorities would then contact Iran and tell them Ideen is coming and when to expect her. Even though Sweden's migration board says on its own webpage it will never deport asylum seekers to nations where they face danger. Doing so is a violation of the Geneva Convention on Refugees. Sweden's migration board says it cannot comment on her case. Ideen spends her days helping at church or training in Taekwondo. She's earned a black belt, but the Migration Board took her certificate because she's not a legal resident. She thought she landed a job with the technology giant Ericsson as a computer programmer. But the Swedish government wouldn't allow that either. Sweden turned down Ericsson's plea to let her work for them.
So as soon as you get your negative, you cannot get any support of any sort, no housing, no place to work, and so on, even if you had a job before. The idea is to starve you to the point where you come to them and say, please send me out.
But she's staying in Sweden because her family is here, and because she says Jesus told her not to be afraid. Stransson and other Christian asylum seekers in Sweden face deportation at the same time that the Swedish government has given 150 protected identities to former ISIS fighters who have returned to Sweden so that they can find jobs. There will be no such help for Ideen.
There have been fast lanes for Syrians, and there have been fast lanes for Somalis, but not for Iranians, and definitely not for Christians. We have even one judge here in Stockholm who never has said yes to any Christian.
If they're going to act on her case to deport her, she'll get a letter?
She doesn't necessarily get anything. They just turn up, and can turn up anytime.
I don't know what will happen for me in future, but I should say to them, thank you. To people, to CBN, and to you, to all the people try to help me. I just can't say Jesus bless them all.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, Stockholm.
Thank you so much, Dale. And we encourage you to let the Swedish government know your opinion about what's happening to Ideen Stransson. Just go to cbnnews.com for a link to the Swedish Embassy in Washington and to Sweden's Migration Board.
Coming up, she is the sole survivor of her family. Meet the North Korean Christian who escaped to tell their stories.
Prayer is a communication with God. It's a powerful exchange between God and man. We're going to answer many of your questions in Answered Prayer, how to pray effectively and see God work in your life.
In Pat Robertson's latest DVD, Answered Prayer, you'll learn the biblical principles of prayer and how to get your prayers answered. And hear miraculous stories of answers to prayer from Pat's own faith-filled journey.
We share some of the lessons that I've learned along the way.
Plus, you'll see dramatic, true stories of life-changing answers to prayer.
God proves himself time and time again.
He's in the room with us, answering people's prayers.
I think I survived because God has a bigger plan for my life.
The doctor was just like, I've never seen anything like this before.
He hears your prayers.
I never saw this coming.
Every great work of God is preceded by prayer.
Answered Prayer. How to pray effectively and see God work in your life. Call now or go to cbn.com.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Joy Behar, co-host of the TV show The View, publicly apologized this week for her comments mocking Vice President Mike Pence for his faith. Last month, Behar compared Pence listening to Jesus' voice to mental illness, which set off an outcry. On Monday, Pence told Fox News Behar called him to apologize, but he asked her to make a public apology as well.
I said to Joy, of course I forgive you. That's part of my faith experience. But I did encourage her, and I'm still encouraging her. to use the forum of that program or some other public forum to apologize to tens of millions of Americans who were equally offended.
So I think Vice President Pence is right. I was raised to respect everyone's religious faith, and I fell short of that. I sincerely apologize for what I said.
Good for her. Well, Behar's apology came a month after her criticism of Pence's faith.
President Trump shook up his cabinet this week, firing Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and replacing him with CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Chief political correspondent Gary Lane is here to talk about this. So why is Pompeo better for this choice than Tillerson?
Well, I think he's better because he sees eye to eye with President Trump. He's more supportive of the positions that President Trump supports, the views that he has. And this would be on things like China, North Korea, Iran, Russia.
And speaking of that, on the issue of Iran, he has taken not just Iran, North Korea and others, as you mentioned. He's almost like a hawk, isn't he?
Well, he is. He's a hawk. Yeah. He believes in being tough. And, for example, on Iran, when he was in Congress, he disclosed some secret side deals that were made in that agreement that Obama and Kerry negotiated. And he's opposed the Iran agreement, just like President Trump. On North Korea, he also believes in taking a hard line. I don't think he would have soft-pedaled like Tillerson did when the president said fire and fury.
My understanding is that Pompeo is a believer, right?
Yes, he is. He's a Christian. Mike Pompeo is a man who is very devout in his Christian faith, and he's even attended meetings of the White House regularly, the Bible studies that we have reported about.
You know, I've spoken this week with some folks who advocate on religious freedom around the world for Christians and other minority faiths. They seem to be optimistic about Pompeo's nomination to state. What's your take on that?
Well, especially with Sam Brown back there as our ambassador on religious freedom. Yeah. I think the two of them are good friends. They've worked, obviously, both of them from Kansas. Sam Brownback is the former senator from Kansas, former governor, and then also Pompeo is a former congressman from Wichita. Now, George, it isn't necessarily that they will be advocating religious freedom publicly, but I think when Pompeo goes into meetings with officials around the world and diplomats, he will raise Christian rights, religious freedom, not just for Christians, but for others in those meetings.
Okay, terrific. It's a big shakeup here in our nation's capital, but looks like religious freedom advocates are welcoming this shakeup.
Better than it has been.
That's right. Okay, Gary Lane, as always, sir, thank you for your insights.
And that was Gary Lane, our chief international correspondent. Well, speaking of North Korea and religious freedom, as our audience knows, North Korea is one of the most repressive regimes in the world against Christians. Our Asia reporter, Lucille Toulousan, recently met two North Koreans who fled the country to escape death.
For security reasons, we shall conceal their identities and call them Jae-un and Sung-min, both North Korean defectors. Jae-un is the lone survivor in a family of 5 siblings. Her father was taken to a labor camp in North Korea when she was 2 years old. He was never heard of again. During the Great Famine in the mid-1990s, her only brother died of malnutrition. Her mother died on the road while trying to find food to bring back to her starving family.
When my mother died, we did not have the strength to bury her. My older sister went to China to earn a living for the family. She sent money once to buy rice, but I never heard of her after that. I learned that she was sold as a slave. My older sister engaged in smuggling, got caught, and was sent to a labor camp where she also died.
Out of desperation, Jae-un decided to escape from North Korea.
One night in December of 1999, I crossed the Yalu River and swam for the Chinese border. The water was freezing and the current was so strong, but I was determined to survive. After arriving in China, I chose to be sold to a man so I could live in the big city. But I ran away from him because he did not treat me well.
It was then that Jae-un joined a Bible study group in China. She remembered the woman she met prior to her escape, who spoke to her about God.
She told me that God is alive and is with me since He is the father to the fatherless and the defender of the widows. I had heard of God in North Korea, but I was also aware that believers are taken to prison. I was able to make a phone call to my only surviving sister in North Korea, and I told her about Jesus Christ and that God will help her through the harsh times. She accepted Christ as Savior. However, officials discovered that we were communicating, and so they took my sister to a labor camp. And since then, I never heard of her again.
Jae-un married a North Korean man she met in church, and they eventually moved to South Korea. Unlike Jae-un, who lived in poverty, Sung-min was well off and a college graduate in North Korea. But he says he was disenchanted with his country and decided to leave.
I knew that the Kim regime was enjoying a luxurious life while so many people were starving to death. In January 2007, I crossed the Tumen River into China. However, the South Korean family I met there didn't welcome me because I was not part of their family. The border guards told me to go to a church where I can get help, but I refused because I was an atheist. I hid in an apartment in China and started to find ways to commit suicide. In June 2007, a Chinese man I got to know during the river crossing brought a preacher to me. He said he understood my hardships, and Jesus Christ died on the cross for me. When I heard it, I felt something heavy in my heart. It was the first time in my life that I had such feelings. I thought I was nothing, but Jesus died on the cross to give me eternal life. I cried, knelt down, and prayed with him.
Behind me is the railroad track that takes tourists to the boundary of North Korea. North Korean defectors continue to hope that one day they will be able to cross over to the other side to be reunited with their loved ones. Sung-min believes 60,000 North Koreans have defected, but half of them decided to return to North Korea.
They have gone back to minister to their families. There are about 30,000 of them who belong to the underground churches in North Korea.
Today, Jae-un and Sung-min run a Christian radio program in South Korea that features North Koreans transformed by Christ. The program also promotes unity among North and South Koreans in preparation for reunification.
I believe God has a plan for us and will reunite Korea in His time and in His way. Our program aims to embrace the differences and restore common identity of the people of two Koreas.
Even though my life was extremely harsh, God chose me as His child, and it is Him who brought me here. So I will praise His name and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ until the very end of my life.
Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Seoul.
Still ahead, honoring the 21 Christians who gave their lives for the faith. A community celebrates their martyrs.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible, because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
All of a sudden, everything starts to let go. The ledge and everything.
Right when I realized that I was buried, I knew I was going to die.
So I just cried out to God, said, God, what do I do? And I heard him just as loud as you're talking to me, go find your brother.
See miraculous stories like this in Answered Prayer. Pat Robertson's latest teaching uncovers the keys to help you get results, break down barriers, and build dynamic faith to receive your answered prayer. Available now.
And welcome back to Christian World News. It's time to bring you the best of the web.
That's right. These are some of the most viewed stories on our Christian World News webpage, beginning with a convert from Islam to Christianity. Was a former radical Muslim who used to dream about killing Christians and Jews until he met Jesus Christ. While he never actually committed an act of terror, he says his journey from jihad to Jesus is nothing short of a miracle.
And I was reading the Sermon on the Mount, and there were tears coming out of my eyes, and I was like asking myself, what is this? I knew it was part of the Bible. It was a book of the Bible. Later, I found out that it was the Sermon on the Mount. But interestingly, where the Lord says in the New Testament that love your enemies and bless those who curse you. And then in the Quran, it says, go and kill all the Jews and Christians wherever you find them. That was the very turning point in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Jay faces daily persecution for his decision to follow Christ and asks believers everywhere to pray for him and his safety. The ministry, Pakistani British Christians, helped him find a safe place to live and start a new life.
3 years ago, 21 Coptic Christians were brutally beheaded by ISIS terrorists on the shores of a Libyan beach. Egypt's Coptic community recently honored the martyrs by dedicating a brand new church in their name, with the Egyptian government's approval. We spoke to Rex Rogers from Sat7, who helped cover the event.
Part of the amazing testimony of this is the fact that others have witnessed how Christians have responded to church burnings or church destructions, bombings, or, of course, what happened on the beach in Libya. Not in anger, not in rock throwing and killing, but in forgiveness. What an incredible statement of what Christian love is really all about.
Hundreds of people from around the area reportedly came to dedicate the church in the martyrs' honor.
A Western woman who has dedicated her life to serving the poorest of the poor was honored this week. Maggie Gobran, known as Mama Maggie, serves the forgotten children in the slums of Cairo, Egypt. She received the Charles Colson Award for her, quote, conviction and courage in caring for the children and their families. Her Stevens ministry operates medical centers, schools, and training programs for the tens of thousands of kids there. It also brings poor families food and holds Bible studies and prayer meetings. Author Marty McCary told CBN News that Gobran left a career as a successful businesswoman and teacher in America to serve the poor.
Unlike Mother Teresa, who essentially came from poverty and took a vow for poverty, Mama Maggie came from wealth, and during an encounter when she was a successful marketing executive, connected with a child in the garbage slums, a famous district of Cairo that's been mostly neglected.
You can find more on all these awesome stories at our Christian World News webpage, including more from Jay about his conversion to Christ, as well as links to the ministries involved. Just go to our web address on your screen right there. We'll be back right after this.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
In a city known for its spiritual darkness, there's now a new place to stay for travelers that seeks to be a shining light.
Contributing correspondent Miranda Lee takes us to Thailand for the story.
Going to the nations so that the nations will come to you. That's the mission behind Zion Hostel, located here in the heart of Chiang Mai, which is an international hub for human trafficking.
You will be in room 1, and then we have the Wi-Fi password for you here.
Welcome to Zion, a Chiang Mai hostel and cafe that, like its name, seeks to be a bright light in a dark place.
We don't just want to be another hostel, we want to be a place where they walk in and they feel something different. They feel loved, they feel inspired, they feel cared for.
The building was purchased a few weeks ago. Now World Race teams are helping get the hostel ready for travelers.
Doing a lot of painting, scraping old paint off the wall, like just getting it looking really nice for the people that are going to be staying here.
It was purchased by the organization Adventures in Missions, pioneering their concept of business in missions. It's the idea that being a missionary can look like more than just church planting.
The ones that have the administrative backgrounds, the finance backgrounds, the marketing backgrounds, is our only option to change who we are, to be in this space, or is there a way that we can integrate the gifts and the talents the Lord has given us to further His kingdom?
This cafe is just one example of how Zion's using business for ministry here in Thailand.
I welcome people. I love to talk to people about Jesus and show them how much Jesus I love.
Through working at Zion, Hope heard the message of the gospel for the very first time.
What was your life like before you started working here?
Oh my God, my life, I don't have freedom. Before, I look like I'm so sad here. I don't have enjoy. But when I know Jesus, I have so much enjoy.
Zion staff plans to complete renovations within the next few weeks so that they can begin welcoming international travelers. In Chiang Mai, Miranda Lee, CBN News.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Miranda. Well, folks, that is it for this week's edition of Christian World News.
Oh, we've been around the world and back.
So fast. That's how we roll, guys. That's how we roll. Hope you've been blessed by this show. Until next week, from all of us here, goodbye and
as always, until we meet again, God bless you.